listening to Late Night Radio on the SHR Media Network. Caution, there will be mature themes explored and potentially adult language used. If conservatarian words, phrases, certain concepts, or rhetoric offends you, tune out now.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
Leftist lies and globalists, I'm pushing them back. From the saloon to the airwaves, I'm spitting it raw. Constitution's my compass, liberty's law. Big guns creeping, shadows on the land. Feds with the schemes trying to bind up my hands. But I'm the Sherpa, guiding through the storm. Red, white, and blue, yeah, freedom's reborn. They spin their tails, but I see through the haze. Media maggots, lost in the maze. I'm calling it out, no fear in my soul. This patriot's fire ain't losing control. Conservative Sherpa leading the fight. Torch in the dark, burning bright in the night. Stand for the truth, won't bow to the game. Sherpas, come and remember my name. Sherpas rising. Freedom's calling. Let this judge is twisted, trying to steal our rights, but I'm locked and loaded, got them in my sights. From J6 to the border, they're selling us out. I'm screaming from the mountain, hear my rebel shout. They mock the flag, but I'm holding it high. Stars and stripes forever under God's open sky. No globalist chains gonna cage this land. I'm the Sherpa with the truth in my hand. They push their agenda, but I'm breaking the mold. Their promise is empty, their heart's ice cold. Chicago's bleeding, borders torn apart. I'm fighting for the people with the warrior's heart. Conservative Sherpa leading the fight. Torch in the dark, burning bright in the night. Stand for the truth, won't bow to the game. Sherpas, come and remember my name. Sherpas rising. I've walked the line, 41 years, badge on the grind, now I'm on the air. My voice like a blade, cutting through the lies that the traitors made. Hurricanes rage, but we're standing tall. Sheriffs of the Constitution answering the call. From the saloon to the heart of the fray, we're taking back America, no more delay. Conservative Sherpa leading the fight. Torch in the dark, burning bright in the night. Stand for the truth, won't bow to the game. Sherpas, come and remember my name. Sherpas rising. Static, hear my voice resound. Conservative Sherpa, freedom's battleground. Berserk, Bobcat, Rose will never kneel. For God and country, this fight is real.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for watching tonight. Tonight is a very special, well, it's one of these.
This is an SHR Media Network special report.
Tonight I'm going to be talking about the potential abolishment of the FBI. And I'm going to be speaking for roughly however long it takes for me to get through the material that I have up here. If that's an hour and a half, if that's 2 hours, if that means that I have to go into a little bit of overtime, then I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to do what's necessary. No guests, No call-ins. I just am going to be using this as a presentation. I figure that this is overdue. So the purpose of the show tonight, an SHR Media Network special report, is to address a very fundamental question, one that others before me have done, only perhaps not to this extent. And the reason for the existence of the show is, for me, if nothing else, to archive the various issues involving the FBI in the past, say, 10 to 15 years, and also to make available to you, my very important viewers, at least something of a central repository of articles and videos that you can present to people who ask and demand. So, you don't think the FBI is acting constitutionally? Prove it. So refer them to this show, archived on the SHR Media YouTube channel and also on the SHR Media Rumble channel under my show name. 2 hours of essentially what are going to be articles and videos that exemplify what I've said for quite some time about the FBI. And I say this despite the fact that some time ago, I worked for the FBI and I was also a sworn U.S. Marshal, and I still had to produce this show. If you follow me on social media, you know that I've said for quite some time the FBI is nothing more than the weaponized arm of the DNC and Leftists. It is a corrupt, anti-American terrorist organization. Whoa, BZ, how can you go there? Easy. What's the definition of terrorism? The standard definition of terrorism is the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians, in the pursuit of political aims. Now, if you don't think for whatever reason that exemplifies the FBI, I might suggest you watch the entire show and then draw your own conclusions. That's the point of tonight's show. That's precisely the kind of program that's been wielded like an authoritative federal cudgel against the citizens of the United States by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They also utilize the very weighty and never-ending funding of the DOJ, the Department of Justice, not just like a cudgel, but like a 10-ton wrecking ball in order to destroy the lives of those individuals they target. And they most definitely target individuals. People, in many cases, not even accused of crimes. We'll get to that. But because they represent a spectrum of individuals who believe in such terrible things like the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the American flag, individual rights, our freedoms having been given to us by God and not government, the Bible, self-defense, firearms, national sovereignty, independence. Well, that was sufficient to have elements of the FBI classify those persons, like myself, and probably like you, as domestic terrorists. We were domestic terrorists in the eyes of the FBI, and they had courses training that. I saw one. And so, of course, I'm not kidding. I am in some FBI file somewhere, and all of my calls are likely somewhere in the thousands of liquid-cooled NSA Utah data center servers. As I joke, I have my own personal FBI agent. You may have one too. If you listen to my show, also, you're probably going to have a file as well. Now, if you recall, Congress itself was surveilled, as indicated in a complaint, if you remember back then, by then alive California always spell it with a K Senator Dianne Feinstein. That's back when she breathed air. Speaking of which, I found it somewhat odd, and I bet you did too, that the FBI gave Senator Feinstein, then who was chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee from 2009 to 2015, they gave her a heads up when she had a Chinese spy in her midst. So, as we're going to do tonight, remember that spy started as her driver, then became her personal assistant, carried and was privy to confidential security documents due to Feinstein's committee position, and shuttled along all this information to his Chinese communist handlers, whomever they happen to be. Maybe they were in the United States, maybe they got sent overseas by whatever fashion necessary. But here's the deal. He wasn't just there for a day or two. He wasn't just there for a month or 6 months or a year or 5 years. He worked for her roughly 20 years. Can you imagine the vast tranche of information provided by just that one guy back to communist China? Yet the FBI took Senator Dianne Feinstein aside very kindly. Come over here, young lady, and in a calm and even and measured voice, told her that they would be investigating. And she said, I'm sure, hey, thanks for the heads up. Which is precisely what Donald John Trump, OMB, Orange Man Bad, the guy with the dead orange cat on the head, was specifically not afforded. Instead, a soft coup was conducted against a presidential candidate, a presidential nominee, the winner of the presidential election, and a sitting president, conducted 24/7 then and now by most of the 17 alphabet agencies, intelligence agencies, oxymoron, extant. So, okay, fast forward. And we have discovered concrete evidence that the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, once revered as a neutral and effective law enforcement agency, has increasingly become a tool of political warfare, from targeting concerned parents at school board meetings to suppressing information detrimental to political allies. The FBI's actions have undermined its foundational mission. And again, I think I'm being fairly kind here. The FBI's current trajectory necessitates what I would consider to be some really serious consideration of its abolition, as it has become obviously to me, not to leftists, not to Democrats, not to leftists, not to globalists, but has become altogether way too politicized, way too biased, and way too agenda-driven to serve the American people impartially. When was the last time you think the FBI was involved in something impartial? Maybe a note job. Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. The FBI doesn't do note jobs in banks anymore. The local agencies do that. So the FBI's politicization is evident in its treatment of conservative individuals and groups. There was a 2022 House Judiciary Committee report which highlighted whistleblower accounts. We'll get to them. Alleging and saying that the FBI has been used to target political opponents of the Biden administration, now what I call the Autopen regime. Those whistleblowers described a culture within the agency. I could go on to great extent with that, but I got to get the show going. There's so much to go over. But the culture prioritizes political considerations over actual, real, objective law enforcement. One of the most egregious examples of that was the FBI's investigation into parents attending school board meetings. So remember, go back 2021, the National School Boards Association sent a letter to President Biden requesting federal assistance to address threats against school members. Now, that was left very wide. Threats against school members. A threat could be construed to be, I don't like what you're doing. Oh, that's a threat. In response, Attorney General Merrick Garland, remember, he of the chip on his shoulder because he didn't get to be on the Supreme Court. So there was that massive chip present. He issues a memorandum directing the FBI to coordinate with local law enforcement to investigate such threats, air quotes, threats. However, that subsequent House Judiciary Committee report found no legitimate basis for using federal law enforcement resources in the manner that it was done, suggesting the directive, I should say, was politically motivated, period. And it was there to suppress dissent against progressive educational policies. And again, I think I'm being very kind here. So the FBI's suppression of information has raised serious concerns to anybody that has half a brain about its commitment to upholding the First Amendment and the rest of the amendments. During the 2020 presidential election, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg testified that the FBI warned him about potential Russian interference, leading Facebook to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story. I've got that article to show you tonight. There is clear evidence that the FBI collaborated with tech companies to censor information unfavorable to certain political interests. I wonder what those political interests were. What I call the DLG, Democrats, leftists, and globalists. You know, all of those guys who've been doing the same thing, oppression, to us, conservatives, Republicans, for quite some time. So the FBI decides that it's going to selectively enforce, it's going to pick and choose from a menu, one from column A, one from column B. And all that does is undermine its credibility. So despite evidence of vandalism and destruction at pro-life pregnancy centers, the FBI decided that they weren't going to pursue those cases with the same vim and vigor that they pursued all the others as well. Conversely, the agency has aggressively pursued people associated with the January 6th Capitol riot, got more information about that, and even where the cases were not allegedly, they were minor. That's a disparity in treatment. That's two levels of an application of laws. And that is a politicized approach to law enforcement. We're going to touch on that tonight as well. You know, the FBI crows about being the ne plus ultra, the creme de la creme of law enforcement all over the place. I think they've got, if I'm not mistaken, 9,000, 9,500 agents around the United States. And then what they had also was a failure in leadership, again, air quotes, leadership. FBI directors James Comey, Christopher Wray, their lack of accountability, their lack of transparency, Comey's handling into the investigation of Hillary Clinton's email server, his involvement in the Russian collusion probe. It deserved what it got, wide and deep criticism. But again, a lot of people like me and others are saying, okay, it's one thing to criticize on a level, but are we going to see any action? Any consequences of illegal actions? Oh, I've got more stories about that later on tonight too. Nothing. Okay, he was fired by President Trump. But of course, what he did get is he retained his federal pension. He wrote a nice, fat, profitable book afterwards, which was found in cutout bins in bookstores all across the United States of America. But hey, he got his greckles right up front. That's all he gave a shit about. So Christopher Wray's regime, this was supposed to be a fix. Not everybody is perfect. I'm certainly not. Donald John Trump is certainly not perfect. But Wray, gonna fix the problems, didn't. So that was completely contentious with the accusations that he abjectly failed to address the FBI's abject, biased politicization and obstructed, people say, and I believe that he obstructed congressional oversight. He was reluctant to release information. He wasn't transparent. His defensive controversial actions have further eroded trust in the FBI. That's been going downhill rapidly, geometrically, for about 15 years, perhaps even more. I mean, I can't even get into the history of the FBI at this point right now. So tonight we'll examine at least a portion of this information in the time that I have provided. It's going to be about 2 hours. I may go into overtime. I'm looking at a whole bunch of tabs up here. That shocks you, I'm sure. And I'm going to try to attempt to clearly as possible, illustrate that the FBI's transformation from kind of an impartial law enforcement group, just ask them, they'll tell you that they're the finest, to a politicized and weaponized entity. That is a serious concern for people that have issues with this republic. It's not a democracy, as we all know. It is a republic. So its actions against conservatives like you and me, suppression of free speech, selective enforcement of laws like these, don't like those, and failure of leadership have basically compromised everything. So in light of all this stuff tonight, what I'm doing is postulating this. I ask, should we abolish the FBI and replace it with some kind of a new, accountable, and nonpartisan agency? And if so, why not? And at the very end, I will leave that to you to decide, what do you think? And again, should people say, oh no, listen, no, the FBI not politicized. This is here. It is immured for further consultation. And if people tell you to your face, or the demand, prove that the FBI is biased, refer them to the show. That's one of the primary reasons that I'm doing it tonight. Maybe I get a lot of people watching. I don't really know. I'm not really going to be able to look at comments in chat right now, because I am more interested in making sure that I have the information that I have gleaned and assembled right here, to make sure that I have it right. So it's imperative to restore the rule of law and to make sure that all Americans are treated equally under the law. Everybody's equal or nobody's equal. But that still begs the critical question, how do we keep on a positive path? Okay. Is the FBI salvageable? Will the new director, Kash Patel, be able to actually work against the deep staters that are embedded like blood-sucking ticks in the FBI building? So will replacing the entire 7th floor work? That's where the bigwigs live. That's where they work. That's where they have their wonderful palatial offices. When in all the rest of the floors below, in the 55 field offices, in the RAs, the resident agencies, which are much smaller, and all the legats all around the world, the legal attaches, deep staters are still working actively against Patel, Trump, the AG, and more. You can be guaranteed that that is true. So let's explore all of that tonight. Is it time to demolish the FBI and start over? Can it be rehabbed? Okay. Only time will tell. You're going to see the articles. You're going to be able to see the videos. You'll understand. And then the bottom line is, you decide. This is all up to you. And then if we decide that we don't like it, some people have said the U.S. Marshals are truly the only constitutional federal law enforcement agency. That is correct. That is technically correct. So will that be an issue? Has that been an issue in the past? Will it be an issue in the future? Let's start right here, if we will. I'm going to start new. Just doing show prep for this took me about a day and a half. Now, people will probably say something similar to BZ. You have AI. You could have done AI. You could have gone to AI. And actually, I tried that. I tried to craft the proper questions to get me as many articles to illustrate my point tonight. And maybe I didn't ask the right questions. I'm kind of a moron. But AI was not predominantly much help with regard to this. You know what was help? When I came across articles regarding the FBI and I bookmarked them and I created a folder, and then most of the stories that I have for you tonight are out of that folder, not necessarily from AI pointing me in the right direction. Now, does that indicate a clear bias by AI? I don't know. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I am not sufficiently smart to understand AI. But let's start here, because like I say, we're going to kind of go all across the spectrum. This is new. This is wonderful. And yes, I am going to play the video between Kash Patel and I believe it's Representative Dean. There are some things to illustrate from that as well. We can see here that things are in fact changing. What does it actually mean? Does it mean the FBI is in the process of actually doing its job? Who knows? There are so many elements and forces that are working against Kash Patel and everybody associated with the Trump administration right now. It's a hell of a job, and it's an uphill battle, and it's essentially Sisyphean. Remember Sisyphus, who was doomed to push the boulder up the hill for the rest of eternity? The FBI is kind of like that. FBI opens formal criminal probe into New York AG Letitia James over alleged mortgage fraud. Well, of course, they have to write alleged. Oddly enough, this is the same thing of which Trump was prosecuted, because Letitia James predicated her election entirely upon, I'm going to get President Trump. It was the revenge tour by Letitia James, despite the fact that in terms of loans, Donald Trump paid off all his loans. There was no complaint from any of the big banks. He historically, as always, paid off his loans. The valuation of properties is an agreement between private parties, that is to say, Trump and the various banks, and still they decided they were going to prosecute. But this is delicious in terms of the FBI and U.S. Attorney's Office in Albany, that is the capital of New York State, have launched a criminal investigation into mortgage fraud claims against Letitia James. Massive 9.7 Richter Schadenfreude. The investigation follows a request the Justice Department investigate James, sent by the Federal Housing Finance Agency Director William Pulte to the Justice Department last month. So, amazing, huh? Schadenfreude. Speaking of Schadenfreude, I got to play this. And I will stop at various appropriate points. You may or may not have heard the whole thing. It's about 6.5 minutes, and I'm going to play the whole thing because I want you to understand the direction and the bias and the agendized everything that leftists are pulling. And yet, I think you'll conclude Kash Patel acquits himself quite well of this. So let's start right now. This is Kash Patel, the FBI director, testifying before the House Appropriations Committee. And of course, the knives are out, especially from this one representative. Cross, uppercut. Well, you find out. You listen.
Thank you, Chairman Rogers, Ranking Member Meng, Chairman Cole, Ranking Member DeLauro. And thank you, Mr. Patel, for your testimony and for being here today. I've been looking at the President's 120-word FBI budget request, the so-called skinny, I'll call it Ozempic request, that states that, quote, the undoing of the weaponization of the FBI is one of the administration's top priorities. The weaponization of the FBI that is something that deeply concerns me. It should concern all of us. And yet, since taking office, President Trump has been on a revenge tour.
Hey, that's funny. That's exactly what Letitia James said. It wasn't a quiet part. She said it out loud. That's how she got elected in the state of New York. Now, this should not surprise you. We'll come back to the video. We got to take a break. It's the first half hour of the show. It's an SHR Media special report. The FBI. Should it be destroyed? What can we do with it? Please come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Mission log. Intrigue. I mean, let's face it, who's even counting anymore? The Lost Wonder is officially off course, chasing rogue rocket launches, fringe science, and things that probably violate causality. If it burns fuel, bends time, or makes scientists very uncomfortable, yeah, I'm probably going to talk about it. Every other Sunday on KLRN Radio, The Lost Wanderer, because space doesn't come with a roadmap, and honestly, I wouldn't follow if it did.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here's Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Hey fellas, are you mission ready? You need to check out Mission Ready Men via Earl Big E Jackson on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Central, and noon Eastern. It's a show that equips you to navigate our society's challenges from a biblical perspective with courage and conviction. Tune into Mission Ready Men as we examine our culture through the prism of biblical truths, teachings, and how to apply them in our daily lives. Prepare to step up, stand out, and step into your role as a man as ordained by God. That's Mission Ready Men, hosted by Earl Jackson on the SHR Media Network. And get mission ready.
Want to make an immediate difference in the life of a critically ill child? You have the ability to do that right now. Make a donation to Dream Makers for Life, the organization that restores dreams to seriously ill children and their families. You can sponsor a dream pack for a child, which contains a clear PVC backpack, a dry erase board adventure coloring book, a journal, and dry erase markers to inspire a critically ill child to envision a future adventure and hope. Want to become a dream maker for life yourself? Go to dreamforlife.org. That's dreamforlife.org. Help a child. Help a family. There is always hope.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Thanks for being here tonight. I am BZ. You're in the Saloon. Tonight it is an SHR Media special report. And that special report is the FBI. Should it be destroyed? What should we do about it? What can we do about it? Are we doing anything about it right now? What is Kash Patel doing? And that also brings up, you're not going fast enough. A lot of people have said that of the Trump administration right now. There are so many things to be addressed, so many things to talk about. I have some reasons for that, but it's 108 days now of the Trump administration. And a lot of people are saying, well, we're simply not going fast enough. Let me go back to this. And this is an interview. This is a representative named Dean, and she'll be addressing Kash Patel. She's a leftist. She's a Democrat. And you can clearly tell by the make and means and the manner in which she's talking to him. Continue.
He has targeted individuals, universities, law firms with executive orders to cut them out or to make them come under his will. He has used ICE to disappear U.S. citizens without due process.
Oh, bullshit. Again, 2 forms by 2 judges in 2 courts of due process. Let's listen to her continuously lie.
and he's fully ignored a unanimous Supreme Court order. And then over the weekend, wasn't sure.
And a unanimous Supreme Court order said, yes, you can do the 1798 Enemies Act. You can continue with that within certain parameters. So they didn't say, no, you can't do anything. But that's how she's trying to portray it.
Or if he was obligated to uphold the Constitution of the United States. In your book, your recent book, Government Gangsters, you include an appendix with a list of names that people have referred to as an enemies list. Now, I know you will claim it's just an appendix, not an enemies list. So let's focus on how the president sees it, on what the president calls it.
Okay. Notice those are her words. Notice those are not his words. But notice that she'll lie to you up front and then try to attempt to give you a reason. Well, this is why I call it an enemies list, even though it's actually an appendix. And that's what she said. And that's at the end of the book.
And you proudly display his quote on the front cover of your book. The president calls this a brilliant roadmap, a blueprint. And I have not even raised your storied children's book.
Do you think she's read it? Do you? Do you? Do you? I don't think so.
Plot against the king. It concerns me how many people from this blueprint have been targeted with executive orders and FBI investigations. The FBI cannot be weaponized. And under your leadership.
Correct. Under the prior administration, the FBI was weaponized. But here's the deal. It was weaponized in a fashion that she loved. Absolutely loved. Now, as long as it goes along with her, that's fine. As long as it keeps in congruence with her philosophy.
It has been nothing but a weapon alongside the president to go after the president's perceived opponents, to stifle dissent and free speech.
That's exactly what the auto pen regime did to Trump and everyone else who is a conservative. As I've said for a long time, Beezy's axiom, one of many, is that whatever leftists accuse you of, they are themselves doing, only much worse, much deeper and broader and with greater amounts of time.
A few weeks ago, as we saw through a social media post that you quickly deleted, the FBI arrested a judge in Wisconsin for correctly asking ICE officials if they had a judicial warrant.
Okay. What? Okay. I have another comment. BZ, shut up. Just let her talk.
Instead of an administrative warrant, which they did not have. Despite this judge following the law, on the morning of April the 25th, the FBI...
Okay, stop. Let's talk the truth, because I've been in law enforcement for 41 damn years, and I know what a detention order is, and I know what a detainer is, and what this country has operated for the past 50 plus years, 60 plus years, 70 plus years are detention orders. Orders of detainer, and law enforcement has historically complied with that in order to get illegal invaders, people who do not belong in the United States of America, out. And it's only become an issue now. This bint and other assholes like her want, I believe, people say there are 10 million illegal invaders in the United States. I say bull. I think it's not just 20 million. Now, we're a country of 340 million people, give or take. People say it's 10. No, it's not 10. Oh, it might be 20. Oh, no, it's not 20. I think it's closest to 30 million people. Now, you tell me, in terms of the Cloward-Piven strategy, how it is that you could possibly, as a government, provide that many actual court hearings, because that's what they're demanding, in front of a judge. It can't happen. And that's how you blow this country apart. But the auto pen regime intentionally did that in order to, via Cloward-Piven, blow this country apart.
The FBI arrested the judge in an escalation of the weaponization of the FBI under your leadership.
Here it comes.
Let me be clear. A functioning democracy does not lock up judges.
Okay, I'm stopping right here. Because what this idiot said is that it doesn't matter what a judge does. A judge can do anything he or she wants. Laws are immaterial. They are beyond that. They are beyond that. They are beyond you. They cannot be locked up because they cannot commit crimes. That is the largest swath of unmitigated bullshit, and you and I both know it. And yet it comes so easily, spewing out of her mouth, this terrible emesis.
I am gravely concerned about the utter lack of independence of the FBI and its weaponization
Jesus.
under your leadership. I am concerned that the president is using this book, your book, as a blueprint, as he has said.
Okay, podium. Pontificate. Are you going to ask him any questions? No. We're going to pontificate from my podium, pontificatingly.
It's a blueprint for revenge. And I am concerned that your eagerness, a childlike giddiness to carry out the president's revenge tour, you've shown yourself to be unserious.
Okay, he's a child. Now, you can get away with saying that and quantifying some white guy, but here's a white chick quantifying a man with a higher melanin count than her as he's a child. And yet this doesn't cause riotous reactions? I can't imagine why.
In your statements before you were sworn in and some after, you've shown yourself unfit to lead this important agency. I was an impeachment manager for President Trump's second impeachment. It was a sad, solemn duty.
Oh, she laughed her ass out every hour off camera. Guaranteed.
And so I wanted to ask you about that. Mr. Patel, as you and the president continue to weaponize and investigate his perceived enemies, as you follow this blueprint, when can I, a former impeachment manager, expect the FBI at my door?
Ma'am, you want to know who was targeted by a weaponized
And we're off.
FBI? Me. You want to know how and why?
Well,
you
maybe
want to know
need
what I'm
write
doing
a
to
book
fix it?
about that. Let me move on.
Well, you should read the book because
she doesn't want to. Notice, let us move on, because he just gave her the answer that she doesn't want to hear, because it's all about her. It's all about her platform, pontification. Go.
there's no enemies list on that book.
So
There are people that violated their constitutional obligations and their duties to the American people,
That's good. You
and they
gave
were
them due
rightly
process.
called out.
I'm
And
changing
you should
topics.
give that book to every one of your
I'm
constituents so they can
changing
read
topics.
about it.
I won't be doing that.
That's their loss.
During your
Nice.
Senate confirmation hearings, you repeatedly denied having any involvement as a private citizen in the firing of FBI officials who engaged in the prosecution against January 6 insurrectionists, the violent rioters who beat and killed Capitol police officers.
Bullshit, unmitigated bullshit, incredible bullshit, wrong bullshit, lying to your face bullshit. The only person that died that day was Ashley Babbitt. The other officers that were involved had subsequent heart attacks. One Capitol officer was hit and injured, and he died after being hit with a fire extinguisher. Lies and bullshit and lies.
And whom you referred to as political prisoners. Since then, multiple
Oh my God. See, but this is what you're dealing with at every level.
whistleblowers have come forward, and we know that you likely committed perjury. At the same hearing,
Oh, really? Prove it.
you claimed you were not familiar with Stu Peters, an anti-Semitic Holocaust denier.
Okay, I have to say right now, I have no idea who Stu Peters is. I don't watch him. I don't listen to him. I don't know if he's a Holocaust denier. I know nothing about this. So I'm being honest up front. Who is Stu Peters? I don't listen to him. I don't know.
Despite the fact that you appeared on Mr. Peters' podcast 8 separate times. 8 times. And you claimed not to recall.
8
Mr.
times.
Patel, my second question is, should we worry more about your memory or your veracity?
We should worry more about your lack of candor. You're accusing me of committing.
Oh, wait. Here we go. I got to start. Here we go.
Perjury. Tell the American people how I broke the law and committed a felony.
You
Have
did.
the audacity to actually put the
all right,
facts
then
forward
the answer is
instead of
both.
lying for political banter so you can have a 20-second
answer
donation.
is-
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is how every Republican in front of any committee should act. Don't take their crap and throw it right back at them. And if you have to walk out, walk out. Show a spine. Don't be cowards. Don't be invertebrates. Most Republicans and conservatives, when they're in front of a committee like this, are exactly that. This guy is brooking, Kash Patel is brooking no bullshit from this bint.
Hit.
The answer is both. I believe that the
The
men and
answer is
women of the
you're
LGBT
failing,
I
not
will
me.
play my time.
Go ahead.
Mr. Patel, I believe that the members of the FBI, and I know many of them, many retired, 38,000 people, as you say, it's a little less than that now, deserve the very best, deserve extraordinary independence, deserve freedom from the fears of being investigated, the freedom of coming forward to make sure they're doing their job. And I'll end with this, that I think it's interesting that in your proposal today, you find yourself at a gulf of difference between you and the president. I wonder how you will resolve that. Will you go to the president and say, we need 11.2 billion, not what you cut out of here? You're asking for more than $1 billion than the president's request. Are you going to go to the president and straighten out that gulf?
I'll do what I've always done and represent the American people, defend this country, and make sure the Constitution is always upheld
Thank
and the
you.
FBI is never weaponized. Maybe you should do the same.
Perfect. And that's how you handle that kind of crap. You don't sit there and take it like altogether way too many people have done historically. Here's Kash Patel in another interview. I believe this is with Sean Ryan.
Chris Wray, the director of the FBI, and Rod Rosenstein were tasked with helping us at Congress, where I ran the Russiagate investigation, to expose Russiagate. We went to them and said, look, you guys didn't do this. Help us expose it. You know what they did? They launched an investigation against me. They used grand jury subpoenas to get my personal information, my banking information, my emails, my cell phone information, everything else. I didn't find out till 5 years later when Google called me and said, hey, our 5-year notification has lapsed. We can now tell you the DOJ surveilled you. And we had.
And this is what Kash Patel is talking about when he was the focus, the subject of an FBI investigation. Oh my. And now he's in charge. But anything that was done wrongly to him, his job now is to make sure it doesn't happen to other people. God bless him for that. Continue.
Had to turn over documents. We exploded that into a federal lawsuit that's still ongoing in the DOJ and FBI.
What? So Google informed you that you're being surveilled 5 years after the investigation started. What more did they tell you?
They're not allowed to say anything. As a former national security prosecutor, I know you don't just go to Google. You go to every provider. You go to all the telecoms. You go to the bank. You go to everybody. But these two guys who were running the FBI and DOJ sat in a room with the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee and lied to our faces. They threatened to investigate us. They actually did it.
You see where this is going? Well, of course you do, or else you wouldn't be here. Here's another story. Here's another article. Oh my goodness. Something is happening to my ears. My volume has gone down. Oh, this is what happened to me the first time I lost my high frequencies. It happened within the span of about a minute or two. And now I went from a certain level listening, and now I'm not hearing as well. What happened? That is just a really weird aside. Now, this is how leftists, Democrats, leftists, and globalists describe Kash Patel as what's happening. This is from The Guardian in the UK. And of course, this clearly illustrates their agendas themselves. Ex-FBI officials worry that Kash Patel, as director, may wield unlimited power. You know, like the unlimited power that was wielded by Trump 45 because he's a dictator and was opposed at every measure, at every level by everyone on the Democrat Party. True then 45, true now 47. So Kash Patel wielding unlimited power. I'll tell you a very brief story. I don't have very many people that I know and talk to in the FBI. I think the last person that I spoke to was about 3 years ago. And that individual worked for FBI mandatory retirement age is either 55 or 56. I don't remember. But he retired. He went into a like-minded adjunct job, and I still kept in touch with him, especially and particularly after Comey. He said the bulk of the people at the FBI are so terribly ashamed of what James Comey has done to their once very splendid agency. And perhaps it started to nosedive, of course, under Mueller, and then went through Comey. I have illustrations of Comey as well. But he said on a grand level, the line level agents were greatly opposed to Comey, and they were embarrassed at many points to be members of the FBI. Now, that really shouldn't come as any kind of a shock to you at all, but I'm just relating to you what there are actual, true FBI agents that want to do their job. Many of them are not in the administration. Many of them are on the line level doing the work every day. But remember what I said earlier, and if I don't think so, but if you happen to be listening and you know who you are, give me a contact. I'd like to talk to you. You still have my phone number, and I'd like to chat sometime and see what you think of the current things that are going on right now. I spoke earlier in the first half hour of this, and people have been saying, conservatives, Republicans, whomever, have been saying, why don't we see the Epstein files? You said you would reveal them. And to me, this is an illustration of why we don't have everything yet, and it hasn't been kicked out into the Atmo. FBI reviewing Epstein files, tens of thousands of videos, hundreds of victims. So please, I ask, as I have before, technically, I think it's day 108. I could be wrong, but give them time. Just give them time to do their job. I think for the most part, the people that are in more control are interested in breaking this information. And I don't think we can imagine how horribly any number of people and entities and agencies are opposing all of this because they don't want to be exposed individually or collectively. And then, of course, there's this. MSNBC forced to walk back contributors' outlandish Kash Patel claim. So a guy said that Director Kash Patel has spent more time at nightclubs than he has at the agency's headquarters in Washington, D.C. And you know for a fact, if they had video of that, that video would be splashed all over the American media maggots' airwaves and radio waves. It's a lie. It's a continuing lie. And then they had to walk that lie back. Anytime they're opening their mouth, the American media maggots are lying, period. End of statement. Here's another story. Deep state intel staffers are once again leaking classified info to stop Trump's agenda. This is everywhere. Deep staters are everywhere. They're at the top, they're in the mid portion, they're at the bottom. And if they can possibly shit in the punch bowl, they will effectively do it. And they have been doing it. More illustrations that this is eminently true. Let's continue. Let me see if I can pull this up. This is Brett Baer. And he was speaking with John Ratcliffe, who is, I believe, the CIA director. Yes, that's right, CIA. And the FBI, he states The FBI was ordered by Barack Hussein Obama not to arrest Hillary Clinton for espionage in violation of 18 U.S.C. 793, gathering, transmitting, or using defense information. In fact, James Comey effectively served as Hillary Clinton's personal attorney. Now, I can, perhaps you can too, watched Comey live set up bowling pin after bowling pin after bowling pin in terms of reasoning why he should have recommended prosecution of Hillary Clinton, and then said at the very end that because he didn't believe she had intent, that he was not going to make a recommendation, and he was not going to send it over to, I think it was Lois Lerner? Lois something at DOJ, who was the AG at the time. I think I got her last name wrong. But James Comey's job as director, as all law enforcement, is to simply line them up, do the investigation, then make the recommendation and ship the package over to the prosecutor, in that case, the Attorney General. James Comey wasn't even going to do that because he was told. Let's listen in.
About what the Obama Justice Department ordered federal lawyers to do and not to do concerning the Hillary Clinton email investigation. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge tells us in sworn testimony on Capitol Hill, one of the insiders told lawmakers what she was told.
During closed-door testimony last summer,
Lisa Page, remember her?
Former FBI lawyer Lisa Page said the Obama administration's Justice Department advised the FBI not to pursue the gross negligence statute for Hillary Clinton in the mishandling of classified information. Former U.S. Attorney and House Republican John Ratcliffe led the line of questioning about the statute, known as 18 U.S.C. 793. Ratcliffe, you're making it sound like it was the department that told you you're not going to charge gross negligence because we're the prosecutors. Page interrupted. That is correct. Page's testimony appears to conflict with then FBI Director James Comey's recommendation in July 2016 against criminal charges for Clinton.
What I can assure the American people is that this investigation was done honestly, competently, and independently. No outside influence of any kind was brought to bear.
Bullshit, James Comey. Bullshit, Jimmy the Leak. And you will understand why I call him Jimmy the Leak. Go back. And I wrote about this in my blog, Bloviating Zeppelin, at bloviatingzeppelin.net. And I said there are two types of crimes, generally, two types of statutes. There are statutes of general intent and statutes of specific intent. This is just one of several that could have been charged under the USC. They were not crimes of specific intent. And BZ, how do you know if it's a crime of specific intent? As I've said any number of times, because somewhere in the section it will say something remarkably similar to with the intent to. Oh, but she couldn't have generated the intent to do that. And in his fetid little knurled brain, that's all it took. Nope, not going to make any kind of recommendation.
The Republican-led House Oversight and Judiciary Committee investigation ended in January. With Democrats now in control, the committee's new ranking Republican made the Page transcript public.
The transcript releases show an inherent two-tier system, one in which Hillary Clinton gets the treatment that she got, where there was actually at first concern that they were going to charge her, and then with Loretta Lynch in charge, before she recused herself, made it very clear.
Sorry, not Loretta Lerner. That was, I think she was the Treasury or the IRS, Loretta Lynch. Thank you.
Clear that that was not going to happen.
The tip-off came from a chart drawn up by federal investigators assigned to the Clinton case known as mid-year exam. Fox News has confirmed that the chart listed possible federal statutes for prosecution. Next to gross negligence was a notation, quote, DOJ not willing to charge this. Only known cases are military. Cases when accused lost the information. In response to the Page revelations, the president tweeted the transcripts.
Okay, so cases where they've lost the information, what about intent? What about her doing this with intent? Oh, just ignore that. Move on. Nothing to see here.
Quote, make the Obama Justice Department look exactly like it was, a broken and corrupt machine.
Thank you.
The Page transcript also confirms Fox's earlier reporting. The Page testified Russia collusion was still unproven when special counsel Robert Mueller was appointed.
And he himself, incredibly biased. Again, because he was an FBI director and then was in charge of the Russia investigation. I said I would get to this. This will be the last story before the top of the hour break. We will take a top of the hour break. Remember I said I called him Jimmy the Leak? James Comey, and people entirely gloss over this. But he was happy. He was pleased that he was able to do this, that he got away with it and suffered absolutely zero consequences whatsoever because of the regime and because of the temper of the times. He knew he would get away with it. So he had a friend leak his memo, his FBI memo about President Trump. As it says, now this is Time magazine back in June of 2017. James Comey had a friend share the contents of a memo he wrote about his interaction with President Trump in the hopes that it would lead to the appointment of a special prosecutor, Mueller, for the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. The former FBI director told the Senate Intelligence Committee Thursday, no consequences. Zero consequences. Well, wait a minute, BZ. You always have to ask, cui bono? Who benefits? Well, Mueller was a former FBI director. But if he's appointed a special prosecutor, what happens? And what if he's a former FBI director recommended to be special prosecutor by a then current FBI director, cui bono? Oh, that's right. They both do. Because who gets paid for that? Oh, that's right. Robert Mueller. So Jimmy the Leak was putting coin into Robert Mueller's pocket. And you're surprised because?
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
In a world where leftists are running out of metal for the safety pins of their soothing red diapers, one man stands alone, attempting to fundamentally change America, one leftist diaper at a time. BZ, your conservative Sherpa, is guiding you through the maelstrom of Democrat leftists and globalist lies, chaos, deceit, and betrayal. Listen to BZ Saloon on select and exclusive Tuesday and Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Central, and 11 p.m. Eastern on the SHR Media YouTube channel, Twitch, KLRN, Rumble, and X at BZ Saloon. It's one great late-night conservatarian talk radio show. Be there. Aloha.
Hello, friends. You have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRN You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRN Radio.
It's Sean from the Edge of Liberty. Just like the Bidens, I too am moving. Only in my case, it's days and times. That's right, you can now find the Edge of Liberty Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 Eastern, and Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on 11 Eastern on the SHR Media Network. Join me as we talk politics, news, alcohol, fun, not so much fun, clowns, small kittens, large kittens, dogs, amoebas, and anything else that just pops into my mind while I'm on the air. That is Monday and Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast, on YouTube, X, KLRN Radio, Facebook, Twitch, and anywhere else a good podcast is found. Please check out our website, shrmedia.com. I will see you live on the air.
Attention, all patriotic women of faith. Yep, I'm talking to you, sis. Are you looking for high quality, super soft apparel that reflects your love for country and your devotion to God? Look no further than Carry Girl Gear. Picture this. You rocking a tee so soft it's like being hugged by a cloud, all while showing off your love for God and country. Sounds dreamy, right? Well, welcome to reality, babes, because that's what we're all about here at Carry Girl Gear. We specialize in super soft tees, tanks, and more, designed specifically for the strong, patriotic woman who proudly wants to carry their message of faith and freedom. When you shop with us, you're not just getting a t-shirt. You're joining a community of like-minded women who are proud to wear their beliefs straight on their tees. So whether you're sipping sweet tea on the porch or leading the charge for faith and freedom, do it in a Carry Girl tee. Because life's too short for stiff, boring tees. CarryGirl.com, where faith and freedom meets fashion.
Independence. With that declaration, America was born. Inspired by a belief in the God-given rights of every human being, and in the good that comes from exercising these rights well. The founders of our great nation chose independence. As do we. Hillsdale College accepts no government funding because independence makes possible the good to which we aspire.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
I'm BZ. Thanks for being in the saloon tonight. I have gone through a very strange and bizarre and kind of frightening hearing loss during the show. Everything started out fine, and now I can barely hear myself. So I may have just gone further deaf live in front of everyone. It's a little weird. It's a little scary. But thanks for being here tonight. Let's go back to this. Everybody remember the Steele dossier and how this was, again, as I've been quantifying it before, the Steele dossier created by a British dude, Christopher Steele, essentially said that, oh, you know, Trump, he peed on a bed and hookers peed all over him, and it was nothing but pee and more pee. And of course, it was crap and pee and lies. So now the New York Post came out with an article. I should care to point out that this was written by Andrew McCarthy, who's one of a handful of journalists who I still read their stuff. Andrew McCarthy is still an actual journalist. The Steele dossier was a political dirty trick orchestrated by Hillary Clinton in order to create let's just follow the stories, shall we? Special counsel John Durham's indictment of a guy named Igor Danchenko, the principal source for the bogus Steele dossier used by this is the critical element right now. The Steele dossier was used by the FBI. Again, the FBI, should it be destroyed, that's the crux of the biscuit tonight, as a basis for the Trump-Russia investigation. Illustrates that Durham has his sights set on the Clinton campaign. But of course, they are Teflon. And nothing truly happened. But this is continuing to buttress the fact that the FBI is a massively agendized and biased organization. Can it change? Will it change? Here's another story. This is from the BBC. Holy shit, BZ. Where did you find this? Well, no thanks to AI, because I asked. I had to dig this up all by myself. But see, here's my continuing contention. Said any number of times and said now. I don't have to make anything up. I don't need to. I bring the articles and the videos just like I'm doing for you tonight via the internet that the American media maggots intentionally choose to ignore. But yet, as I've said before, look, I have a keyboard. Look, I have a mouse. Look, I have fingers. So I can find this stuff too. Again, rather astounding. The BBC article with the headline, Clinton team and Democrats bankrolled the Trump dirty dossier. How many times does this have to be said? And still, the American media maggots mostly will ignore this, lie about it, and you won't hear it. And the Democrats won't mention it. But they sold this to the FBI in order to justify going to the FISA court, the security court, and getting essentially what Trump said was a wiretap. We don't do that stuff anymore. We don't tap things. You don't pull out your butt set and take your alligator clips and go right here, right here. No, it's all done digitally. We knew what he meant. We absolutely knew what he meant. But he was surveilled. He said he was wiretapped. He was surveilled. And then, of course, because I had to find more information, because of the nature of the show tonight, I found this. The Senate Committee on the Judiciary. This is back in 2020. Newly declassified document indicates the FBI misled Congress on the reliability of the Steele dossier. But why? Because they were agendized and biased against Trump. They were doing the will of Barack Hussein Obama and the Democrats and the leftists, and in a linked way and fashion to the globalists as well. And they predicated these warrants, which they had to go in and renew any number of times, I think up to 3 or 4 times, because they expired every 90 days. So they had to go back to the court to justify the continuation. And what that meant was they lied to the courts. Now, this is one of the few cases. Oh, don't Bigfoot yourself, BZ. Let's just continue. Let's just leave it with, oh yeah, the FBI lied. And let's continue, because here's this story. Oh, gee. Hey, look what's next. FISA court slams FBI conduct in Carter Page surveillance warrant applications. I said then, and I said now, I don't understand. Oh, John Roberts, by the way, supervises the FISA court and the judges. I don't understand how that happens. Consider the source. If I were a FISA court judge, I'd be multiply pissed that I was misled, parenthesis, the truth is, lied to by the FBI. This is from CNN. CNN? FISA court slams FBI conduct. And they wrote, this is, let's see, when is this? Back in December 17th, 2019. The typically ultra close-lipped Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, FISA, behind the FISA Act, slammed the FBI for mistakes. Mistakes. Oh, they were just errors. We didn't mean it. There was no intent. Hillary didn't have intent. We didn't have an intent. It was just an error. It was an unenforced error. Anyway, they made a mistake. Well, no, it was a lie. And ordered the agency to detail how it will improve its warrant applications in light of the errors uncovered recently by the Justice Department's Inspector General. But again, go back. And one of the points that I'm making here tonight is, tell me and show me and illustrate for me where any of these people are paying consequences for their intentions. Oh, it was a mistake. Oh, they lied. I don't know how it came out. I have no idea. Hey, here's something unique. Ever hear of the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine? Let me tell you a big difference that I learned in terms of evidence. There are laws of evidence in various state courts, 50 state courts, and then there's federal evidence laws. And the laws of federal evidence are looser than they are for the various states. And certainly California always spell it with a K. And yet, despite that, all of these people that lied to the courts had tons of consequences, just like the courts are trying to provide consequences for the Trump administration. No, that didn't happen. No. Now, they were angry because they were duped and they were lied to, as illustrated, but did anybody really suffer any consequences because of that? I don't believe so. Here's another story that I discovered because I can actually tap keys on keyboards. This is from the New York Post back in 2019. The FBI kept using, remember what I said just a few moments earlier? You have to go back to the courts. And if you want to continue it, you have to ask for renewals. So they got a FISA surveillance warrant to go in and conduct surveillance predicated upon a lie. And then the FBI, according to the New York Post, Greg Wray, Catherine Herridge, we heard her earlier speaking with regard to John Ratcliffe and Brett Baer. So the FBI kept using the Steele dossier for FISA renewals despite an extreme bias. You got to go back to the courts and you have to renew it. And you have to continue saying to the courts, I'm going to lie to you again. And then I'll lie to you again. And then the courts, they may be a little upset, but nobody suffered any consequences, no responsibility because of this. The FBI formally documented the apparent anti-Trump bias of British ex-spy Christopher Steele shortly after the November 2016 presidential election. Yet, despite the red flags, continued to use his unverified, bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton dossier in multiple FISA court warrant application renewals. So they didn't just cock up once, it was a mistake. They mistaked 2, 3, 4 times because you have to go back to that court and say, if you want a continuance, well, we're getting, there have to be returns otherwise on these warrants. These are technically called returns. But they still said, oh, here's this great dossier that we provided you, and we're still getting information on this, and this is great. So we're going to tell you to your faces and lie to the sides of your face, just like we lied to you before. Here's another. Here's a name that really comes striking from the past. This is from Time Magazine. And this is back, let me see if I can get the date. January of 2020. Remember this dude? Rod Rosenstein authorized the release of text messages between FBI employees Peter Strzok, and Lisa Page, said a court filing. Now, if you saw any of the hearings from Peter Strzok, the dude, I'm sorry, is just demented. Major type A power trip on this dude. And of course, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page were fucking. I can think of no more specific delineation of their relationship. So, Rod Rosenstein authorized the release of private text messages between the two FBI agents critical to President Donald Trump, according to a Justice Department court filing released late Friday night. Now let's go back. Let's take a larger, more umbrella-like perspective on this. They were using FBI phones, FBI equipment for the texts. And they got pissed off because the texts got revealed. But the texts in terms of investigations revealed a clear bias, a clear agenda against an individual. Now, if I, as a law enforcement officer, and we had MDTs, MCTs in our cars, mobile terminals. Now they've got laptops. But we used to send messages back and forth to each other, to dispatch, all sorts of places. And if it was determined that messages were improper or against regulations, we would get written up. And that happened many a times because, sadly, some of the cops were really stupid in writing messages. Well, these guys were really stupid in writing messages. But did they suffer any consequences? No. And then you have the FBI, which is supposed to be the ultimate law enforcement agency with people making investigations who are biased from the very get-go, but that just doesn't seem to matter. That seems to be immaterial. Trump wrote, when Lisa Page, the lover of Peter Strzok, correct, talks about being crushed and how innocent she is, ask her to read Peter's insurance policy text to her, just in case Hillary loses. Also, why were the lovers' text messages scrubbed after he left Mueller? Where are they, Lisa? They referred to Trump as an idiot. They expressed support for Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton. Now, if I went into an investigation in my local agencies that I worked for, and somebody found out these clear investigations, my ass would be off the investigation immediately, and then I would likely suffer some sort of internal consequences or even discipline. Did this happen to them? Well, they got fired. And then they won. They won. What did they win, BZ? I think it was Strzok who won $1.3 million. $1.3 million for doing all that. And of course, that all depends on which court you go to. If you go to mom and you don't like mom, you go to dad. If you don't like dad, you go to mom. Here's another article. This is from 2018. From ABC News. Go figure. Batch of new Strzok Page texts show FBI efforts to shape news reports. More than 100 pages of newly recovered text messages show FBI officials Peter Strzok and Lisa Page used authorized channels within the FBI to help shape what they view as misguided media reports. So not only did they lie, but they attempted to craft a narrative. How do you get away with that? Well, somebody somewhere, or a series of somebody's somewhere, decide that, oh, it's not that bad. It really isn't that bad. But did the FBI learn any lesson? And the answer is, of course not. No, of course not. This is from Just the News. John Solomon, I believe he was with Wall Street Journal, left Wall Street Journal because he didn't care for it, struck out on his own and created his own website, justthenews.com. John Solomon has written this article. Here's the headline: Biden memo, let feds target Americans for non-criminal behavior before Catholics. Parents probed. Well, were they subject to a criminal investigation? Well, let me reveal a secret. If they're still doing it now, I think they are. Back then, it used to be they would conduct a pre-investigation. And then somebody somewhere, usually the SAC or the ASAC, would sign off on the pre-investigation, and they would say, bing, go forth and investigate. We think you've got enough. Go. Biden memo, let feds target Americans for non-criminal behavior. The Biden administration authorized federal law enforcement 4 years ago, and this is back from, what did I say, 2025. Oh, there's a new article, May 6th. Cool. Glad I found this one too. The Biden admin authorized federal law enforcement 4 years ago to target Americans engaged in concerning non-criminal behavior. So they opened up an investigation and they were targeting people who weren't committing crimes. As I've said any number of times, but wait, there's more. The concerning non-criminal behavior was in the name of fighting domestic terrorism, with a specific eye on those serving in the military, owning firearms, or spreading what officials considered to be xenophobic disinformation. Who determines xenophobic? One man's xenophobia is another man's reality, and I like to deal in reality. Newly declassified documents. As John Solomon writes, the stunning breadth of the mandate was disclosed when DNI Tulsi Gabbard recently released a fully unredacted version of the prior administration's, the Biden regime, the auto pen regime, their strategic implementation plan for countering domestic terrorism. So this June 2021 memo exposed for the first time the law enforcement and intelligence framework that led the FBI to monitor and probe conservative Catholics and parents who dared to have the temerity to protest against school board policies. And that justified DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, to engage in censorship and the debanking of Americans that the administration at that time considered to be enemies of the state. And who are enemies of the state? As I said in the very first hour, if you believe in the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Bill of Rights, if you love your flag, if you love God, if you love the Bible, if you believe in self-defense, if you believe in sovereignty, if you believe in independence, shame on you. You were considered a terrorist. I'm not making this stuff up. I don't have to. The directives provided to the Justice Department and FBI by the NSC, which developed the memo, said agencies should drive executive and legislative action to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Did you hear that? That's not a state saying that they're going to do that. That's the federal government making the determination of all of the things that I said before. They're no fans of the Bill of Rights. They're not fans of the U.S. Constitution. They're not fans of sovereignty. They're not fans of independence. As I've said on any number of shows before that, your government despises actual Americans, not illegal invaders. Please notice the difference. Despises actual Americans. They need to rein in ghost guns, monitor active duty service members for possible terrorism recruitment, and mitigate xenophobia and bias, not their bias, a perceived bias by other people that weren't yet crimes, but still they were going to investigate them. This just came out May 6th. Okay, hang on. I'm going to have to do something here. I thought I already had this done. And now, magic. Red State. You can see the article, Bombshell Report. House GOP reveals how FBI deceived the public in the congressional baseball shooting probe tonight. The FBI, should it be destroyed? That's for you to decide, which is why I'm presenting all of this tonight. This is an archive. This is a repository. This is a compendium of the things that are illustrative of our lovely FBI, law-obeying FBI, has been doing to your faces and behind your back. From Red State, in March, FBI Director Kash Patel made a major move regarding the 2017 congressional baseball practice shooting and provided the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence all the documents they had requested regarding the incident. Now, when Congress would request documents, the FBI would say no. The Attorney General would say no. And they'd say something similar to, fine, we're just not going to give them to you. What can they do? Consequences? Hashtag consequences. Answer? Not really. Not many. So in a joint statement, the Judiciary, Intelligence, and Oversight Committees issued a scathing joint report alleging the FBI bungled their investigation and tried to cover up the political motivations of the shooter, who was a Democrat, who was a leftist, and shot and almost killed Steve Scalise, who is still doing much better, still recovering. The FBI botched its investigation of the 2017 congressional baseball shooting, downplaying the gunman's anti-GOP motives, despite having handwritten evidence from him. The House Judiciary Committee and Intelligence Subcommittee released the scathing unclassified report on its findings after combing through roughly 3,000 case file documents. It was given last month on the attack that wounded 6, including current House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, and led to the death of the gunman James T. Hodgkinson, who was a Democrat, supported the Democrats. This was an entirely 100% politically motivated shooting, and the FBI didn't want you to know that. Imagine that. Let's go to another story. This is from Western Journal. Oh, shoot. Time for a break. I'm BZ, and this may or may not be the final half hour. Oh my God, I'm not even halfway through. I might have to make this a 2-parter. Shoot. Jeez, oh pizza. Okay. BZ, we're going to take a break.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Listen in to the Reaver of Common Sense, where we cut through the noise of news and politics with a show equipped for bombast. Tune in Mondays and Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, and 6 p.m. Pacific, featuring a refreshing dose of reality. Jersey Joe fearlessly tackles the tough topics with no nonsense. Just pure common sense. Visit shrmedia.com, where you can hear the Reaver of Common Sense in action. He may not always be polite. He may not always be refined. But one thing's for sure. He always tells it like it is.
Are you looking for a way to boldly express your faith and love for your country? And check out 7 Armors, the premier apparel company for patriotic men of God, where faith meets freedom in style. Our t-shirts are more than just clothing, they're statements. Bold, stylish, and meaningful. From timeless messages to modern designs, we've got something for every patriotic man of God. Wear your beliefs proudly with 7 Armors gear. Don't miss the chance to wear your faith and freedom on your sleeve. Visit 7armors.com today and join the movement. That's the number 7armors.com. 7armors.com. Faithful, vigilant, steadfast, passion.
Are you looking for bold, honest conversation about the issues shaping America? Well, let me welcome you to Unleashed 101 with Jeremy Hansen, where we take you beyond the headlines. We dive into politics and culture, the struggles of everyday life. It's raw, real, and unfiltered. If you're ready for truth with a punch, pull up a chair and join us. That's right, Unleashed 101, where real talk feels like home. Find us at unleashed101.com, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and more. We look forward to seeing you. Unleashed 101 with Jeremy Hansen.
freedom. One nation in all of human history was built on that bedrock. Ours. A republic of the people, by the people, and for the people. Self-government requires freedom, just as freedom requires an individual willingness to self-govern. Freedom has made America exceptional, but it can only last as long as you and I seek the good, as expressed by the laws of nature and nature's God. It can only last if you and I choose to act as people of character. Forging character has been the pursuit of Hillsdale College since 1844.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
This is the final half hour, but probably not, because I've just got so much material to go over. Everyone, thanks for being here. This is an intense topic. I've got about 25 people listening live right now. I get it. I get that concept. This is minutia, it's detail, but it's here for you if you want it in the future. And that was part of my goal tonight, to ask the question, the FBI, should it be destroyed? And then list all of the things that the FBI has done intentionally to itself so that it is, in fact, no longer the premier law enforcement agency, as it says it is, of the nation. And so again, if people say, oh, you're full of crap, the FBI is sterling and wonderful, point them to this and have them watch it. Now they won't. They won't, because they already have their thoughts, and they don't want to have them disturbed by facts, anything of that nature. Let's continue from the Western Journal. The FBI whistleblower warns people, arm yourself. What? Yeah, whistleblowers came out of the FBI. And let me tell you what happens to a standard Mark I Model 1 whistleblower. They get destroyed. They get demolished. They get steamrollered. And then the FBI will find some reason to fire them and make sure that they don't take their pension with them. Happened any number of times and may happen again. Will Kash Patel be able to divert this monster law enforcement agency? I wish I could tell you for 100% that I knew that was going to occur. He's making some good inroads. I told you earlier about why all the Epstein files aren't out right now. It's a case of massive, staggering proportions. A whistleblower out of the Federal Bureau of Investigation has given the American public a sobering warning about the agency and the future of the country. So there's a guy named Marcus Allen, not the football player, former FBI staff operations specialist, issued the warning at the House Judiciary Select Subcommittee on the weaponization of the federal government. Imagine that. And Dean was worried about the current weaponization. No, it's not weaponized now. It was weaponized by the auto pen regime, the Biden regime, the Biden crime family. According to the House Judiciary Committee, the hearing was intended to examine how the FBI has used its security clearance adjudication process to purge its ranks of conservatives and whistleblowers and unlawfully punish those with views contrary to FBI leadership. As I said, leftists who are accusing you of fill in the blank are themselves doing that, only many levels deeper, longer, and harder, and for a greater period of time. The committee heard testimony from several people, DOJ Inspector Michael Horowitz, Tristan Levitt, and former federal prosecutor Glenn Kirshner. And so it turns out the whistleblowers, by the way, I'm sure you already know, there are laws to protect whistleblowers, but not if you're working for a particular agencies. You're going to get SCROOD, long, hard, and deep. Thank you very much for Sean says, please like and subscribe. The best way to pay BZ for all his hard work, vodka. Okay, vodka. In May of 2023, these people appeared before the Congressional Committee and spoke on partisan corruption within the federal law enforcement agency. These people were feared by Jabba the Hutt Gerald Nadler, who said that those whistleblowers, they were paid by associates of former President Donald Trump. I mean, how low will these assholes go, leftists, Democrats? And the answer is very, very, very low. The FBI questioned my allegiance to the United States, suspended my security clearance, suspended my pay, and refused to allow me to obtain outside employment or even accept charity. His suspension lasted for 27 months, during which the Bureau kept him and his family in indefinite limbo and prevented him from earning an income. He said the Bureau was trying to destroy him financially. And he said, this is a warning to the American people. I say, I personally have no confidence that the FBI will rein in its own conduct. I personally believe that there are no current effective checks and balances against them conducting lawless action with any type of correction in a legitimate time frame. My other recommendation, they're in the natural order. First, vote. The second is the Second Amendment. Arm yourself and know how to defend yourself. Make 3 to 4 friends in your neighborhood and promise to come to each other's mutual aid in times of hardship. Okay, that from a former FBI agent who was screwed, SCROOD, blued and tattooed. In the show notes, when I do the podcast, each show that I do will be on bloviatingzeppelin.net. It takes me usually 4 or 5 hours, 8 hours the next day, something like that, to post any given show to bloviatingzeppelin.net. But I make mention of that because you will find under show notes of bloviatingzeppelin.net and also my show, BZ's Berserk, Bobcat, Saloon on Rumble, on the SHR Media Rumble channel, and also BZ Saloon under Rumble. I also have show notes. So I mention that because I'm not going to go into detail about this, but this is Mark Thiessen, an article. This article will be posted in the show notes and essentially says, as I indicated and stated in the first hour, Dianne Feinstein, explain your Chinese spy. This is a great read. It's a wonderful article, but I'm running out of time and I don't have the ability
Executive branch
to go in right now and go into great detail. Chip Roy, one of my favorites when he's grilling somebody. The House Judiciary Committee holds a hearing to hear some kind of testimony about Special Counsel John Durham. And this was about a year ago. This is, what do we got? About 5 minutes. I have enough time to do that. Yeah. At this point, yes, I am going to have overtime because I believe that you continue to need to hear and see these things. And this is about the FBI. What a shock. No shock.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Durham, October 3rd, 2016, the FBI offered Christopher Steele $1 million to provide corroborating evidence of the allegations in his reporting. Is that correct?
Yes.
$1 million offered by the FBI against the dirty dossier, to pay for the dirty dossier, to work against Donald John Trump intentionally.
Was that paid to him?
I'm sorry, was that what?
Was that paid to him?
That money was never paid out. There was
Right.
no corroborating.
Mr. Steele relied solely on a single unnamed subsource, correct?
He said that he had a primary subsource who had a network of subsources.
On October 18, 2016, the FBI submits the application for Pfizer surveillance relying heavily on the Steele dossier. No corroboration, correct?
And no corroboration for the substantive claims in that.
But they knew
No corroboration for the Steele dossier. None. John Durham.
Steele was a signed up paid informant. Could have asked for sources, never did, said he was reliable. No record of reliability, correct?
Mr. Steele had provided information in other areas, not in this area, in prior occasions.
FISA application relied, according to your report, at least in part on the Clinton plan intelligence, correct?
I'm sorry,
the FISA application relied, according to your report, at least in part on the Clinton plan intelligence, correct?
Yes.
And they knew Steele had been hired by Fusion GPS, and Fusion had been hired by a law firm on behalf of senior Democrats, and that HC was aware, correct?
At various points in time, those things became known to the FBI, yes.
And December 2016, the FBI determined that Igor Danchenko, a Russian national, was previously subject to FBI investigation to be Steele's subsource, correct?
Yes.
They do not talk to Danchenko before the next FISA application, correct?
Correct.
Okay, stop. I understand what everyone's doing at this time. Their brains are glazing over. Blah, 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 minutia, blah, 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 detail. But if you ever take the time to go back and seriously consider this show with all the evidence that I have presented, you will understand that the FBI is biased in a terrible, terrible way. I believe and continue to believe that it is nothing more than the weaponized arm of the DNC and Leftists. It is a corrupt, anti-American, terrorist organization.
January 12, 2017, the FBI goes back to renew the application for FISA surveillance, correct?
Yes.
Coincidentally, 1 week before Trump is inaugurated, correct?
Correct.
They then, after 2 trips to FISA, finally talked to Danchenko, basically determined it's all crap because they've been relying on a Democrat operative, Dolan, correct?
Well, part of that is true. They clearly had relied on the information in the Steele dossier. There was a portion of one report from Steele that was definitely tied to Mr. Dolan.
Then in March of 2017, Jim Comey testified here on Capitol Hill that the FBI, under its counterintel authorities, has investigated Trump for collusion with Russia and people might get indicted, correct?
Correct.
Is it normal for the FBI director to talk about FISA-related investigations publicly? As a general matter?
I would say general matter, I would say no.
Right. And again, knowing full well the uncorroborated allegations and knowing full well the genesis of said investigation was tied to Hillary Clinton's campaign, which the FBI director would have known.
People in the FBI knew that.
Correct. April 2017, they go back to FISA. They report they've interviewed principal source, that the source is credible, but they leave out the entire fact that it's only credible and making clear that they relied upon before was total garbage. They continued through the summer of 2017.
Do you see what I said earlier? The FBI lied to a court. Oh, they got a little pissed off. There was a little bit of umbrage, and they went, bad FBI. Don't do it again. No consequences, no transparency, nothing in terms of consequences.
Correct?
That's correct.
Under federal law and FISA rules, once they know there's an error or some material fact is incorrect in previous applications, you're supposed to correct that, right?
That's correct.
Was that done here? Yes or no?
Not at the time.
Was Deputy Director McCabe in charge of this investigation?
Yes.
Deputy Director McCabe had direct involvement in the
Was
investigation.
Deputy Assistant Director Peter Strzok heavily involved with the investigation? And was FBI Director Comey briefed on the investigation?
The evidence that we came upon was, yeah, they were definitely, this is driven by the 7th floor.
Each FISA application is a verified.
Okay, now go back to what I said earlier about Peter Strzok and Lisa Page being in collusion, involved in an active investigation, and they were intentionally, gleefully, lovingly biased in the investigation, and nothing happened except Peter Strzok got paid. He got paid $1.3 million because his rights were violated when they discovered and revealed text messages on his FBI equipment phone.
Application, and there's a Woods file with every factual assertion kept in a file, correct?
Correct.
Is it reasonable to believe that senior FBI leadership, and indeed senior leadership at the DOJ, did not know all these failures to ensure truthful facts were used for each FISA application, an application directly focused on an American presidential campaign? Is it reasonable to believe that the senior FBI leadership, and indeed senior leadership at DOJ, did not know these failures?
That I would distinguish between what the FBI knew and what the Department of Justice knew.
Okay, stop right here. Let me ask you a question. I'm going to put my big, fat, ugly mug back up here. Let's go back to the administration prior to Joe Vegetable, prior to the auto pen regime. That was Barack Hussein Obama. Can you possibly conjure with any amount of conviction that Barack Hussein Obama was not aware of everything that was going on with his FBI, his DOJ, under his directive? I don't believe it. Barack Hussein Obama isn't stupid. He's a lot of things, but stupid he is not. He knew. The FBI knew.
FBI leadership knew it.
The FBI, people in the FBI knew this information. Not everybody knew everything, but they had all of this information.
So 2 final questions. In the fall of 2021, our colleague, Mr. Schiff, said in an interview, but at the beginning of the Russia investigation, I said that any allegations should be investigated. We couldn't have known, for example, people were lying to Christopher Steele. Is it remotely conceivable that the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee and the lead prosecutor of the impeachment of President Trump was uninformed that this investigation was kicked off based on a Clinton campaign Democrat-funded report with a witness, Mr. Steele, claiming facts that were uncorroborated and that ultimately came from a subsource, a Democrat operative, Mr. Dolan? Is that conceivable? And is, in fact, there evidence out of the House Intelligence Committee that directly contradicts that and that he did know, in fact?
I wouldn't know what Mr. Schiff would know but at the time.
Finally, a final question. For the average American watching this, besides being fired, have Jim Comey, Andrew McCabe, or Peter Strzok been held accountable for these glaring violations? Have they been hauled before a grand jury or charged in any way? And if not, why not?
So they have not been, I'm not going to talk about matters that occurred before the grand jury because I can't. But with respect to have any of those individuals been charged, the answer is no.
And the answer is no. Now, I said, and likely everybody that's a podcaster, everybody that's listening right now, listened incessantly to Adam Schiff say he had evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. And every one of our cadre of individuals, podcasters, conservatives, yelled at the tops of our voices, produce the evidence, produce the evidence. It was a lie. It was all a lie. These asshores can spew lies and there are no consequences. Like Senator Reid, who lied and then laughed later after he retired about lying about Mitt Romney so that he made sure that Mitt Romney didn't go anywhere in the presidential election. Because, that's funny. Here's more FBI lies. This is from Breitbart. FBI crime data revision scandal, their lives mattered. A year ago, the FBI released a data report claiming violent crime had fallen by 2.1% in 2022 compared to 2021. And a whole bunch of the American media maggots, that is to say all of them, jumped and shouted and celebrated and cited the news despite communities in, reality experiencing their own surges of violence. So, of course, they use this as a fact check because the FBI says so. So it's a fact check. So you're wrong and we're right. Violence is plummeting all the way down like a falling, plummeting elevator. It's that fast. But in a not so shocking turn, the FBI quietly revised those stats, admitting that their initial data were incomplete and misleading. Turns out that violent crime wasn't down, it was up. It was up 6.6% from their previous claims. Some 80,029 violent crimes were mysteriously absent, gone. Pew. How does that happen from FBI databases? Well, the FBI lies. And the FBI is agendized. And they're biased. Oh, and also, they do this. Anybody remember? I certainly do. By the way, at the top of the hour, I may just indicate that we are the SHR Media Network, and that's why you're watching right now. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And we will continue past the top of the hour. There will be no break. As a matter of fact, there will be no more breaks, period. At least not for this show. Feds using banks to surveil Americans' financial data without warrants, House Judiciary Committee says. This is back in December of last year, 2024. The committee reported that feds asked banks to search private transactions for terms like MAGA and Trump and Biden. So federal law enforcement was manipulating the suspicious activity SAR system in order to gain access to Americans' financial information without warrants or probable cause. The committee said in that report, Jim Jordan chaired, that the FBI, your beloved FBI, has manipulated the SAR filing process to treat financial institutions as de facto arms of law enforcement, issuing requests which weren't requests, and the financial institutions, they read the underlying subtext, which was, this is no request, turn the shit over or we're going to make your life a living hell. That's how that works. Without any kind of legal process that amounts to demands for information related to certain persons or activities it considers suspicioso. That's your loving FBI at work. Law? Who needs laws? Bill of Rights? Who needs Bill of Rights? Nobody needs that, especially parents. This is from the Institute for Free Speech. Isn't that ACLU kind of weird? Hey, they love free speech until they don't. But anyway, this is the IFFS. FBI targets outspoken parents. School boards silence them. The FBI says its mission is to protect the American people and uphold the Constitution of the United States, unless you are a parent who is exercising your First Amendment right to criticize your kid's school. As I mentioned before, whistleblower information came out that the FBI targeted parents who spoke out against their school board's COVID policies and prodding from education officials. So how did it start? How did it begin, BZ? Would you tell us that? Well, I would. It would be my pleasure. It all started in September when the National School Boards Association, NSBA, sent a letter to the DOJ requesting federal intervention into the alleged domestic terrorism that is citizens disagreeing with school board officials. That's domestic terrorism. That was a toned down version from an earlier draft of the letter. An independent review of the incident revealed last month. That earlier draft would have requested that the Army National Guard, did you hear this? That letter requested the Army National Guard and military police be deployed to certain districts because parents disagreed with school policies. And Trump's the dictator. And Trump's the Nazi. And Trump's Hitler. This is, again, please note, the theme of my show. This is from the FBI. And where did your hard-earned taxpayer dollars go? This is again from Just the News, John Solomon's site. Executive Director of the Foundation for Freedom Online, Mike Benz. By the way, if you haven't already, if you happen to be on Twitter, if you look at the little thing over here, it says, oh, look, BZ, he's a host. And if you look over here, it indicates I am on X at BZ's Saloon. Here, let me pull this off right here and make some attention to this. So right here, I'm on X at BZ's Saloon. And one of the people that I follow happens to be Mike Benz. He was a great resource of information on any number of my prior shows, especially with regard to the federal government despises you and U.S. aid pissing away billions and billions and probably trillions of your hard-earned American taxpayer dollars. So Mike Benz talked about how government agencies like the FBI paid social media companies to censor speech. Paid social media companies to censor speech. They paid social media companies to censor speech, to censor your speech, to censor my speech. Here's Lauren Boebert talking to a Twitter exec who shadow banned her. Oh, by the way, the reason I'm including this is because it was the FBI who said, hey, social media, you need to shut these people up. So that's the government censoring free speech. Go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Matt Taibbi, a respected reporter who published much of the Twitter files, said, quote, Twitter's contact with FBI was constant and pervasive, as if it were a subsidiary. Now, I want to better understand why he would suggest that. Mr. Roth, while at Twitter, how many meetings did you have with the FBI?
Oh, how many?
I couldn't say for sure, but I would
More
say
than 10?
That's a
More than
reasonable
20?
estimate. I couldn't say for sure.
More than 50?
That seems a bit high.
Many meetings with the FBI. Well, we know how many FBI agents worked at Twitter while you were there?
Whoa, 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 whoa. Stop. Did you know that FBI agents worked at Twitter? I wonder what their agenda was. Wow, that'd be tough to figure out. I don't think I could do it. By the way, tonight is this.
This is an SHR Media Network special report.
And by the way, I also want to let everybody know that you are listening to this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And I say that because it's 10:02 p.m. Pacific. It is midnight 02 Central, and it is 1:02 Eastern. Continue.
I believe any active FBI
Former
agents.
FBI agents. How many worked there while you were there?
I'm aware of perhaps 2.
Well, we know of at least 9 because they started the BU group chat, BU for Bureau. Now, Mr. Roth, did the FBI ever ask you to share information like users' communication data without going through proper legal channels?
No, they did not. And I would have refused if they had.
That's correct. I see that you denied Agent Chan's request for access to Twitter's data feed. What's sick isn't that you would deny it. It's that the FBI would even ask you for the private data of American citizens without going through legal channels of the law.
Stop. Okay. Why were there FBI agents in, at the time, Twitter, overseen and ruled by Jack Dorsey at that point? Why would you have FBI agents retired on your payroll unless you wanted to know and make inroads about the FBI and figure out how can we help or collude with them because we have already been contacted by them? And would it be impossible that the FBI said, you know, we can find it within ourselves to excuse some of this stuff if you just grease some skids here a little bit? Twitter, why not help us out? You help us out. You pay money to our retired guys. Maybe this makes a good shindig in retirement for future FBI agents. Z's axiom, always ask, cui bono? So who does? Well, let's go to this again. Feds using banks to surveil Americans without warrants. They're financial. And key terms were Trump. This is, I went through this, but I omitted these very important salient points. This is how it was predicated that you would be investigated, because they were looking for names and words like Trump, MAGA. Okay, I get that. I grok that concept. But extremism indicators also include Cabela's, Bass Pro Shops, and Dick's Sporting Goods, who is an asshole himself because he doesn't sell firearms in Dick's Sporting Goods. No mo. Well, firearms and hunting, that's a sport, right? Nope. Not going to do it. Wouldn't be prudent. What about this guy? Remember Ray Epps? Let's see. I seem to recall 26 people, I'll use the air quotes, 26 people who were at January 6th. So Ray Epps throws a big sign at cops at U.S. Capitol Police. He was never arrested. But several Trump supporters who touched that sign, they were arrested. 2 levels of justice for everybody in this nation. Yeah. Okay. What did he get? Oh, I think eventually he did get probation. And patriots who were peaceful got years in prison. And they also got bus therapy. What's bus therapy, BZ? That's J6 people who were secreted into seclusion, weren't allowed to come out. They were in solitary confinement. And the bus therapy was they're in one facility, then they get shipped on a bus to another facility, then they get shipped on a bus to another facility, and they get shipped on a bus to another facility ad nauseum, so their family and their attorneys can't find them. That's called bus therapy. Well, would it surprise you that I have video? Yeah. Do you smell? What's that, Lassie? Wait. What do you smell? What do you smell there? Girl, what do you smell? Is Timmy down the well? No, I smell a conspiracy.
You need to go into the Capitol. Into the Capitol. You need to go into the Capitol.
There's Mr. Redcap, Ray Epps. Nothing happened to him. Oh, I'm sorry. My mistake. I just thought of this. I should have written it down, but it just entered my funny little brain here. Ray Epps, if you remember, earlier this year or later last year, I'm not sure which, went on 60 Minutes and bled all over the seat. I don't remember which shithead interviewed him. It's immaterial. They're all shitheads. But he bled and said he was so oppressed. I'm Ray Epps and I'm oppressed. And of course, 60 Minutes believed him because he was Ray Epps and he was so oppressed. Oh, BZ, wait. You mentioned that magic number 26, did you not? Yes, I did. Would it surprise you to know or think that I have an article that says something like this? The DOJ Inspector General Michael Horowitz determined that the FBI did not deploy undercover agents at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. Okay. Note the parsing of the words, which is how you get through this shit. The FBI did not deploy undercover agents at the U.S. Capitol, but it did reveal the agency had 26 confidential human sources shipped in from various field offices in Washington, D.C. that day. What does that mean, BZ? Maybe they weren't exactly agents that had gone through Quantico to the FBI, but they were hired contractors. And hired contractors are something entirely different. And there were 26 of them that day on January 6th. I wonder what they were doing with all those contractors. I wonder if they're saying things or trying to provoke things. I would kind of expect so. So let me see if I can get this. Here we go. This is another interesting story. This is from Fox News. The FBI met weekly with big tech ahead of the 2020 election. So an FBI agent named Elvis Chan testified Tuesday to Missouri and Louisiana attorney generals that the FBI held weekly meetings with big tech companies in Silicon Valley ahead of the 2020 election because they didn't want Trump to win. Now, if that isn't putting your finger on the scale,
yields back the chair.
I don't know what is. Here's another 5-minute video. This is Matt Taibbi. And this is the guy that revealed what happened in the Twitter files. I might go for a minute or two on this. It's 5 minutes. I'm not sure I'm going to play the whole thing, but let's listen for a while.
I'll recognize the gentlelady from New York, Ms. Stefanik, for 5.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It has been almost 1 year since the first bombshell Twitter files. Looking back now, and my questions are for Mr. Taibbi and Mr. Schellenberger, what was the most alarming thing that you came across during your review of internal Twitter documents? And I have a number of follow-up questions. So
this is Elise Stefanik. She's a Republican from New York.
Keep it short.
Sure. Thank you for the question. I think the most alarming thing that we saw was the regular stream, organized stream of communication between the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, and the largest tech companies in the country. They had an organized system for flagging content, not occasionally, but in enormous numbers, involving spreadsheets of accounts that ran to the hundreds and thousands. And this was shocking to us, and to the congressman's point, this isn't crazy conspiracy theory. We've already had 4 federal judges rule that they believe this activity violates the First Amendment. This is
okay, but again, okay, I'm going to stop here because I still have more things to go. But again, who paid for that? Your hard-earned American taxpayer dollars funded the FBI to work against you. Your hard-earned federal taxpayer dollars were turned around so that they could fight you, oppress you, censor you. Can you think of any other way to say it? I cannot. So again, as the basis for this entire show, the FBI, should it be destroyed? Now, I'm not going to say what should replace it. I don't know, and I don't have the time. And it's already 2 hours and 15 minutes essentially into the show. How long do we allow this to occur? Anti-Trump FBI agent responsible for opening Jack Smith elector case against the president. Who's moving against government? Who is censoring? Who is oppressing? Who is working against the law? Who is completely disavowing and not adhering to the law, to the Bill of Rights, to the U.S. Constitution? The answer is the FBI. Anti-Trump FBI agent responsible for opening Jack Smith elector case against president. Let's scroll down a little bit. So they came out. And special counsel defends prosecution in final report. Fox News Digital obtained internal FBI emails shared with Senator Chuck Grassley by a DOJ whistleblower. Who's doing this? The FBI. as the FBI was doing all the other things that I mentioned earlier. And I will continue to mention. And then there was Christopher Wray, right? Christopher Wray was going to be the solution to everyone. He was the solution to James Comey. And hey, Trump picked him, right? So if Trump picked him, that means that Trump knew what he was doing and knew what he picked. Everybody fucks up. Trump 45 fucked up. Trump 47 is fucking up. Just not quite as much as Barack Hussein Obama intentionally, Cloward Piven, and Joe Vegetable, Joe Biden, the auto pen regime. But that was with intent. That was a shadow government. The Biden regime was a shadow government. Joe Biden was as self-aware as a ficus, as a hubcap, as the dead squirrel that's been run over by a 1979 Peterbilt. That was a shadow government. Well, Christopher Wray. He's going to solve everything, right? 5 biggest scandals during Christopher Wray's tenure as director. Oh, but Wray will officially step down as FBI director in January. That was January 2025. Yeah, he was gone January 20th. So let's look. Oh, shit. Now I don't have this content. They want me to, let me see if I can get away with a refresh on this, because there were some great things that were in here. Nope, they're not going to let me do it. You sons of bitches. I did it when I was setting up the show, dumb eats. Well, slush on, BZ. Here's Christopher Wray. Because you know me. You know that I don't have just one story to illustrate something. I have a lot of stories to indicate things. Breaking. This is from Public News. FBI imposed a gag order about Hunter Biden's laptop after employee accidentally confirmed its authenticity to Twitter. Remember the New York Post broke this story? Remember how BZ said Twitter completely removed his ass from social media because after the New York Post came out, broke the story, all I did was retweet that, and Twitter said, no, that's lies, all lies, all lies. You lie. BZ, you lie. Get out. You be gone now. So I was gone. BZ was gone. Newly released internal FBI chat messages reveal senior bureau officials actively shutting down discussion of the laptop's credibility days before the 2020 presidential election. Let me see if I have something. Yeah. Okay. Here's a balance. Here's a scale. Here's the FBI's thumb on the scale, hard influencing the election. The FBI helped to throw the election. Can you think of any other way to state that? I cannot. Again, this is a story from Catherine Herridge, one of the few people that I continue to believe mostly in terms of stories that she writes. In 2024, an FBI official admitted to House investigators that an FBI employee had inadvertently confirmed the authenticity of Hunter Biden's laptop to Twitter on a conference call the morning of October 14th, 2020, the day the New York Post published a story about it. But we can't let that get out because that might throw the election. Apparently, the FBI has no handshake with regard to the truth. The truth is not something with which the FBI has any amount of familiarity. And if you haven't gotten that after this period of time, I am truly sorry for you. Let's go to another story. This came out officially from the House. Said it before, I'll emphasize it again. Federal government flagged transactions using terms like MAGA and Trump for financial institutions. because they wanted to find out what all you damn domestic terrorists were doing with your money, going out and buying your damn guns, going out and buying your damn Bibles, going out and talking that free speech bullshit, going out and supporting the Bill of Rights and the U.S. Constitution, you domestic terrorist asshores. Grassley rips Wray's failed leadership at the FBI with 11 pages of examples in a blistering no-confidence letter. And of course, I can't show this either. I could show it earlier, but that's all right. BZ, move on. You know where I'm going with this. The alternative. Let's place this. Stop. Add to stage. Incoming Senate Judiciary Chair Chuck Grassley blasts FBI Director Christopher Wray. Hey, look, I do have a backup. These failures are serious enough and their pattern widespread enough to have shattered my confidence in your leadership. So, Grassley mentions the search of Trump's home at Mar-a-Lago, using a SWAT team. Yeah, sure, that's necessary. Because who wouldn't want a firefight between the FBI and the Secret Service? Because they were not that far from doing that. Trying to recover classified documents, which led to federal charges against the president as invasive and unwarranted. And the Russian interference in the 2016 election for targeting Trump. And their failures, failure after failure after failure from and by whom? That's right, the FBI. I have another story. This is also about Wray. This is from CNA, Catholic News Agency. FBI director grilled after release of new report on the targeting of Catholics. Senator Josh Hawley engaged in a tense exchange with FBI Director Christopher Wray after the release of the report that found the agency's investigation into traditional Catholics may be more expansive than FBI officials have claimed. We now know, in fact, FBI agents did approach a priest and a choir director to ask them to inform on parishioners in a church. Your FBI using your hard-earned taxpayer dollars to work against you. Because, that damn Catholic Church, I'm not a supporter of organized religion, and certainly not of Islam. But I will support your ability to practice your religion in the United States as long as it isn't Islam. I will never support Islam in any way, shape, or form. Islam is a death cult. It's a culture. It's a barbaric death cult. Need I say more? Here's a story from Real Clear Investigations. A weaponized FBI. It's real whistleblowers testify, boasting scars to prove it. Now, again, I'm running out of time. I really don't want to go past about 10:30 Pacific. So that would be about another 7-8 minutes or so. But you can find all these articles, as I indicated prior, bloviatingzeppelin.net. It'll say show links, or you go to the BZ Berserk Bobcat Saloon Rumble channel on Rumble, and you'll see with this show, scroll down a little bit under comments and information about the show, and you will see show links. This will be in this way. This will be in there under show links. More informazione. That's Italian for information for you to consider and look at and go, gee whiz, you are absolutely 100% correct. James O'Keefe, whatever happened to him?
A federal judge has ordered the prosecutors in the Southern District of New York to release the affidavit, the search warrant materials, and literally everything has been redacted. We go to page 43 of this document that was released. It says probable cause justifying search of the person and subject premises. In order for them to get a warrant to raid a newsroom, you have to go to a magistrate judge and present probable cause. The Southern District U.S. attorneys have literally redacted every single word of the probable cause here, there's just a footnote that says, based upon my training and experience, I have learned, amongst other things, that cell phones.
Okay, stop. Do you guys remember when James O'Keefe had everything taken? There was an FBI raid. Computer, everything to do with his business, any and all technology, tablets, cell phones, computers, etc., all taken by the FBI, which of course resulted in an arrest of James O'Keefe for being a reporter, right? No. But as I've said from the very beginning, that's, let's move on to another one. That's how the FBI rolls. And let me see if I can find another one. I may have time for about 2 more. This is an interesting story, which I recommend reading at your leisure later under show notes. The massive case of collective amnesia. This is back from 2018. I can find stuff on the internet. The massive case of collective amnesia. The FBI has been political from the start. Do that. Then I can scroll down. Political since its inception. Political favors and payback. Rooting out radicals from communist to war protest and civil rights leaders. Infamous unverified dossier, deep state deja vu, and more. A wonderful little tidbit for you to read later on after the show. If you're bored, if you haven't cleaned your parakeet cage yet, or you want to clean your fish tank, or you want to balance the checkbook that you don't have. And I think I'll leave with this. Another interesting story. This is from the judiciary, the House, how the FBI pre-bunked a true story about the Biden family's corruption in advance of the 2020 presidential election. Hey, look, scales, FBI, thumb on scales, as hard as it goes. Because they interfered with an election. Now, this goes back again to the weaponization of the federal government, testimony from FBI and big tech personnel, and subpoenaed non-public internal documents said that the FBI repeatedly warned big tech of a potential influence operation by Russian actors targeting the 2020 election. So they put their thumbs on that. It was a hack and leak operation. The FBI repeatedly warned big tech that the Russian influence operation would likely take the form of a hack and leak, similar to the leak of Democratic National Committee emails. So they pre-bunked a story just in time for the presidential elections. Well, that's so wonderful. Come on, that FBI, you gotta love them. Oh, let's see if I can get away with this one. I still have a little bit of time. The 6 biggest FBI scandals under the AutoPen regime. I won't go into detail. Again, show notes, as I've indicated, where you can find them. FBI initially reports New Year's Day attack was not a terrorist event. Trump slams Ray for illegal raid on Mar-a-Lago. FBI's Richmond memo on traditional Catholics. Oh, you Catholics are so bad. You God and your guns and your Bible and your bullshit Bill of Rights and that shitty U.S. Constitution. Parents outraged over DOJ targeting school board meetings. I have told you any number of times about that. So let's see if I can find out where my little mouse is. Remove that from the screen. Make me small. And let's see what else I have.
Weird in its own right, but more importantly.
Nope, I don't have time for that. It's not that critical. This I found just delicious. There was an alleged FBI guy who hates Trump, who said the FBI is wonderful and the Trump regime went in and kicked in doors and interfered with people and blah, blah, blah. And then I showed him this article. Supreme Court signals it will revive lawsuit over the FBI raid on the wrong house. Mistaken. But the FBI is perfect. It's Trump that's flawed and evil and mean and horrible and terrible. not to mention evil and mean and horrible and terrible. Here's a minute and 41 seconds. Yes, I do have time to play this. So this is Trump in the Oval Office. He's signing executive orders, and let's put this up on the stage, and he says this. And he's speaking to reporters. And he says essentially, the FBI, very corrupt. And I'm a victim of it. Do you think? Hello, 2016.
Mr. President, on a different topic, questionnaires have been going out to FBI agents across the country who were involved potentially in the investigation. Do you believe anyone involved at any level should be fired, sir?
Well, I think the FBI was a very corrupt institution, and I'm a victim of it in a true sense. I was able to beat it, but other people have been treated horribly. I think the FBI had a great reputation. I think it's
past tense. And with that, I think I'm going to have to say goodbye. Thank you for being here. It's been 2.5 hours. And so the decision rests with you. This was my SHR Media special report. The FBI, should it be destroyed? You're going to have to decide. Are you going to give Kash Patel and the other people sufficient time to try to do something with the FBI? Or do you simply want to smash and destroy? That doesn't rest with me. But again, if you want to illustrate to people, the FBI is not biased, show them this show. They won't listen. They won't have any regard for that. But I put it all here as much as humanly possible for you. Everybody, God bless. Take care. Be safe. You have a great weekend. And thank you.